Bismillah. A man approaches a waterfall and he remarks, "This is sublime." Another man, standing next to him, he retorts back, "Actually, the waterfall is not sublime. Rather, you're making a remark about your own feelings. You're feeling sublime." This story is narrated by C.S. Lewis in his Abolition of Man to provide commentary about something us modern folks have somehow been duped into forgetting. He tells us this story to show us that the second man, the actually one, is incorrect. It's not that the man is feeling sublime, or that it's a subjective claim, but rather that the waterfall is indeed sublime. It doesn't matter if you think it's not. The objective truth is that it is. He argues that there are objective truths in this world that all human beings recognize. In this piece, I'd like to elucidate the ways in which Indian cinema, known as Bollywood, introduced a number of ills into South Asian society over the course of a century. Many of the influences that were brought in were even done so under the banner of Islam, using Muslim celebrities to push degeneracy and heretical ideas. The waterfall is indeed sublime, and understanding moral objectivity is critical as we look at the number of ways Bollywood pushed moral relativism in order to prioritize its universality nationalist project. As you'll quickly glean from the commentary I provide, I've looked long into the abyss. I'm not someone with a cursory knowledge of Bollywood cinema. In fact, I'm well aware and well versed of the intricacies of different films, mediums, and, being Indian myself, I have always been surrounded by Bollywood culture and music, whether it's at a wedding, a party, or while driving to the beach with my family. May Allah forgive me for my transgressions, and may my history with it allow others to see with further clarity. I will be breaking down how a number of celebrities like Shah Rukh Khan, Salman Khan, Amir Khan, Saif Ali Khan, Katrina Kaif, Imran Hashmi, Rahat Fateh Ali Khan, Farah Khan, and even Javed Akhtar, who is not a Muslim at all, and various, quote, Muslim figures in partnership with Hindus and atheists have subverted, misguided, and confused an entire generation of Muslims in 3 countries, India, Pakistan, and Bangladesh, and abroad. They have, with subtle craftiness, dressed in the garb of merry song and dance, injected into the minds of the masses heretical ideas of universalism, pantheism, liberalism, feminism, and more. Muslims in Bollywood. The history of Muslims in Bollywood dates back to the early days of Indian cinema, with many early actors, directors, and producers being Muslims. They laid the foundation for Muslim participation, which continues to this very day. Now, I'd like to make a point here that when I say Muslim, what I don't mean is a person who is upon correct creed and would actually be considered a Muslim according to the rules and rites of Islamic theology. What I mean is that for all intents and purposes, while they held Muslim names and were assumed to be Muslim, many of these figures actively held lifestyles and many held positions publicly which would not be permissible in the religion, and in many cases may even take you outside of the fold of Islam. But regardless of their salvific positioning, they are for all outside audiences assumed to be Muslim, and thus impact the Ummah overall. One of the earliest Muslims in Bollywood was Zubaydah Begum, who appeared in several films in the 1930s and 1940s. She was the first Muslim actress to become a star, and her performances in films such as Zubaydah and Amar made her a household name. She eventually changed her name to Vidya Rani and converted to Hinduism to get married. Another early Muslim in Bollywood was Mehboob Khan, who was a film director and producer known for his social films such as Mother India, starring Nargis Dutt, who changed her name from Fatima Rashid and also the mother of Sanjay Dutt. Dilip Kumar, considered one of the greatest actors in the film industry, who played roles in cult classics such as Devdas and Mughal-e-Azam, was also Muslim, and his original name before he changed it to make it more marketable to a Hindu audience was Yusuf Khan. In addition to acting, Muslims have also made significant impacts to the music of Bollywood films. Almost all Bollywood films were musicals, and the music industry in India was, for a long time, just music that was directly associated with film. A.R. Rahman is a composer, musician, and singer who worked on numerous Bollywood films and is one of the most successful and influential composers in the industry to this day. Rahat Fateh Ali Khan, the nephew of Nusrat, the famous Pakistani Qawwali singer, also made a large influence to music in the later part of the century. There are many others, and I'll discuss more in other sections, but these are some notable names that come to mind. Others in the industry include actors such as Shah Rukh Khan, Saif Ali Khan, Amir Khan, Katrina Kaif, and yes, she was born to a Muslim father, Salman Khan, and directors such as Farah Khan, Kabir Khan, Imtiaz Ali, and Farhan Akhtar. As Bollywood has evolved over the years, Muslims have continued to play a significant role in the industry. They have appeared in a wide range of films, from social dramas and romantic comedies to action and science fiction. It's interesting to note the name change many Muslims took in the industry, as well as the acquiescence and acceptance of things like marrying into Hindu households. A lot of the initial name changes happened in the early 50s when post-partition Muslims were establishing legitimacy in the newfound Hindu India and seeking to gain footholds and positions of influence, especially in the media, to legitimize their existence in this new reformed Hindu polity. The cost of this was to erase anything about them that's Muslim, projecting only a watered-down cultural identity devoid of limitations of theology or creed. Many people, in wanting to prove themselves to non-Muslims to gain a little bit of this dunya, sold it all for a small price. Much like the British colonizers would recruit the well-manicured best and brightest from among the colonized to serve as the mouthpieces for imperialist dogma, so too would the nationalist Hindus reach deep into the pool of vulnerable Muslims to serve as guideposts to misguidance. I can't help but be reminded of the deep scars left on the psyche of the American Muslim diaspora in the post-9/11 landscape. Having found ourselves quite literally in the crosshairs of Islamophobes armed with religionofpeace.com tinged ammunition, many took the path of apologetics and appeasement. Muhammad became Mo, Aisha became Ashley. Passionate and fiery khutbahs became subdued and impotent, and any and all of the more problematic elements that failed to align with the cultural sensitivities of the modern West were effaced. What price has been paid for the watering down of the message of Islam in lieu of offering a sanitized and palatable variant? We may now have hijabi models for the OpenAI homepage and the latest H&M ad. But is the goal of Islam just adulation and acceptance? Or is it to spread the haqq and the truth about the message? In the painstaking effort to highlight all the ways in which we are just like you, we have neglected to communicate those ways in which we are different, that offer those whose societies are plagued by heedlessness and decadence a superior way of life. Many have made seeking the pleasure of our non-Muslim neighbors and friends a greater pursuit than seeking the pleasure of Allah and nurturing love for the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Polytheatric puppetry, the introduction of universalism and pantheism. We start with universalism, a heretical concept which Bollywood successfully introduced into the minds of the masses. According to the universalist view, there are certain fundamental truths that are universal and eternal, and these truths can be found in the wisdom of all great cultures and civilizations throughout history. All people will ultimately be saved or reconciled with God, regardless of their particular faith or belief system. This belief is based on the idea that God's love and grace are available to all people, and that no one will be excluded from experiencing this love and grace. Well, the conclusion that universalists draw from this innocuous fact about God being loving is that all major religious traditions are valid. Islam is just as inherently true as Hinduism. Facing the Qibla and doing sajda to Allah is just as valid as kissing the forehead of Ganesh in worship. Both lead to paradise. Believing in Allah is required, but following the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ is not necessary. This belief subverts the authority of Islam and the claim that Islam is the last true guidance for mankind, and as a result, turns Muslims into impotent apologists of peace and love, easily controlled and directed by others. What better vehicle to spread this to the masses than to use a figure that is beloved to millions? Shah Rukh Khan, also known by the initials SRK. SRK, for all intents and purposes, is, in the minds of people, a Muslim, regardless of what Muslims believe. When you complain about SRK to many Muslims, they will say, oh, it doesn't matter, it's not like he's really a Muslim. It doesn't matter. He appears Muslim for all intents and purposes. So even Dubai decided to use him to promote the city and lead in a music video showing him helping out visibly looking Muslims in the streets of Dubai with his charm and swag, even helping a young hijabi pick out a dress, alongside a catchy tune and numbers and impressive visuals. He even went on Umrah, and many Muslims congratulated him for it. And then, after he returned, he decided to visit the Vaishno Devi temple. Is he even Muslim? That's not for me to decide. I'll leave that to the scholars of Islam. You see, SRK is the poster child for this universalist faith. He married a Hindu named Gauri. His son is named Abram, short for Abraham and Ram, and consistently and actively talks about how it's not religion that's important, but being loving and caring to all people that's important. A famous line from a movie of his called Rais, about an alcohol smuggler, he says, Ammi Jaan kehti thi, koi bhi dhanda chota nahi hota, aur dhande se bada koi dharam nahi hota. Meaning that my mother used to say there is no business too small, and there is no deen larger than business. He's the perfect representative for this ideology, and they used Muslim verbiage and concepts in various films and songs to spread universalism. The more a Muslim's aqidah is compromised and the distinct lines between religion are blurred, the weaker and frailer Islam becomes in a person, and the weaker the reason for Muslims to stay together for a cause. Devoid of a strong belief and purpose, the indoctrinated Muslims are now perfect hosts for the parasite of foreign ideologies. One of the most famous Bollywood songs is called Chaiya Chaiya. The song includes SRK dancing on the top of a train with a random improperly dressed woman and workers. It was one of the first songs to introduce the viral sensation item song into the industry, a musical performance that is typically high energy, upbeat. It's a number that's included specifically for entertainment value. They often feature thirst-trap women, elaborate costumes and choreography, and are usually inserted into the film to add a touch of glamour and excitement. You can think of it like Bollywood's version of fan service. The choreographer in this famous song is Farah Khan. The composer is A.R. Rahman. Farah Khan will later go on to direct other films with SRK, notably Om Shanti Om, whose literal title is a Hindu prayer, and the film is about a reincarnation story. The song is originally inspired from a Sufi poem entitled Tere Ishq Na Chaya by Bulle Shah, which is actually about the love for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Gulzar, the lyricist, who's not Muslim, but uses a Muslim-sounding name, took inspiration from it to write this song to which millions dance and sing to this day. One of the very disrespectful verses goes as follows: "Taweez bana ke pehnu use, ayat ki tarah mil jaye kahin." I'll make her like a taweez, right? A amulet, and wear her, and I'll be able to find her like a verse of the Quran, implying an ayat of the Quran. It's followed by other verses that use a lot of Islamic imagery, symbols, and words, along with dancing and gyrating. By including this mix of Islamic imagery tied in with other foreign concepts in Islam, they were able to slowly start introducing Islamic verbiage and lyrics into the masses, which would slowly become incorporated into Hindu ideas. Shah Rukh Khan has another famous film called Veer-Zaara, the namesake of this article, in which he plays an Indian soldier named Veer, who then falls in love with a Pakistani Muslim woman named Zara. In the famous song Aaye Tere Dar Par, Javed Akhtar, one of the most famous lyricists, writes a Sufi qawwali about arriving at the doorstep of God. But in reality, he didn't write it with the intention of it being about God at all. It's about the love between a Muslim and a non-Muslim. How do I know this? How do I know that he didn't write about God? Because Javed Akhtar is not a Muslim, and he doesn't even believe in God. He's a straight disbeliever and atheist. And that's not me saying it. He himself, as a matter of fact, is very proud of this fact, especially after he won the Richard Dawkins Award and is a self-declared and proud atheist. He made a fortune writing lyrics such as these. It's unfortunate that he drifted so far away from his great-grandfather, who was a mujahid and great Sunni mutakallim, Imam Fazl Haq Khairabadi. In addition, the song accompanies a music video showing Zara, Preeti Zinta, who's sitting in the middle of her nikah wedding ceremony, who seems to be in a sad state until the heartthrob Shah Rukh Khan shows up to sweep her off her feet as the camera pans to her angry Muslim father as he stares as a strange and unknown man embraces his daughter. How dare a Muslim father attempt to stop love? It created an escapist fantasy where the humble kafir mushrik is accepted by the arrogant Muslim monotheists. In the film, Shah Rukh Khan ends up in a prison, and his prisoner number is 786, often known to represent Bismillah in South Asian Muslim culture. And he becomes a messiah-like figure to all the prisoners as the Muslim lawyer talks about his greatness and fights in court to get him out of prison and back to his beloved Zara. It's interesting to note that the film could have been written in the inverse as well, with the man being Muslim being played by Shah Rukh Khan and the woman being Sikh played by Zinta. But that wasn't the message that needed to be told. What needed to be told is that a man who isn't even Muslim could be seen by Muslims as a great figure and worthy of a Muslim woman. Let's move to another film, Jodha Akbar. It's a legend that glorifies a Mughal ruler named Akbar, who is beloved by Hindus because he married a Hindu princess named Jodhabai to unite the Mughals with the Rajputs. He also created a religion called Deen-e-Ilahi, which was essentially universalism. It was an attempt to merge elements of Islam, Hinduism, and other religions into a single faith. Akbar believed that all religions contain truth, and that it was possible to create a universal religion that would be acceptable to people of different beliefs. A very famous song was written by Javed Akhtar, composed by A.R. Rahman and sung by Muhammad Aslam. There are loads of examples of this in numerous films, as well as songs. Another is a song called Sajda, from a movie called My Name is Khan, also starring Shah Rukh Khan. The singer is Rahat Fateh Ali Khan, and the song initially sounds like a Sufi poem about Allah. However, upon closer inspection, you'll see that it's not actually about God. It's a duet song with two people talking about making sajda or prostration to one another in love alongside a music video to match. In addition, the movie is about a Muslim man named Khan with Asperger's who falls in love with a Hindu girl and marries her. The movie shows him on a quest to get his wife back in a post 9/11 world, going around doing good deeds, catching terrorists, and helping churchgoers in a storm, and then meeting the president, showing once and for all that Muslims are good people. And finally, his Hindu wife takes him back. Muslims loved this movie. They praised it, applauded it, as they pushed the Overton window for Muslim acceptance. Newsflash, no one accepted anything. All they accepted was a watered-down version of Islam, where everything is about peace and love, no rules, no limitations, or actual adherence to Islam and its rules. It normalizes the idea of a Muslim man marrying a Hindu woman. This isn't permitted. Their wedding is not valid. The movie even shows his hijabi sister-in-law being so proud to finally have a new person in the family for her autistic genius brother who's a devout Muslim who knows pretty much all to know about Islam, but somehow doesn't know that you can't marry a Hindu woman. When this idea is pointed out, many people remark, "It's not that deep, bro, it's just a movie." Maybe it wasn't for the first shovel through. But once you keep digging and digging and digging for decades, it becomes deep enough to bury you. Somehow, some of us are okay with not only selling out the religion for a measly price, but then allowing millions to be impacted. These songs, they play at weddings, birthdays, you name it, and are sung by Muslims and accepted as normal. Most people are unaware either willingly or unwillingly, as I was, and really deserve a slap back to reality. Shah Rukh Khan has another popular song called Tujhme Rab Dikhta Hai, I See God in You, which appeals to another heretical idea, pantheism, and the idea of universalism and pantheism in South Asia is directly linked. Pantheism is a belief system that holds that the universe and all that exists within it is a manifestation of a single divine essence or reality. Pantheists believe that the universe is not separate from God, but rather that it is a manifestation of God's nature and being. Basically, all things are God, and so you could see God in something because, both metaphorically and physically, God is present. Eventually, we need to become fana fillah, or enter spiritual annihilation. But fana, the way it's understood in the science of tasawwuf by the Sufis and within Sunni Islam and in Orthodox Islam, is to relinquish the ego entirely in submission to God to align with the true reality of what it means to be a Muslim. It is when your entire being is aligned with the desires of God and chooses to do only what pleases Allah. There is an understood idea of wahdatul wujud in Sunni orthodoxy, in which only God is the necessary being. His existence is wajib al-wujud, and ours is only temporary and imaginary. This idea, however, is distinctly different to the one that is shoehorned into Bollywood songs and movies, which is clear pantheism. What in reality they are referring to and alluding to is the concept of moksha in Hinduism. Moksha could be considered the ultimate goal of Hinduism and is seen as the highest state of being that a person can attain. It's when a person becomes submerged within the divine, i.e., pantheism. You may think that this is some goofy thing that no one believes, but I assure you that there are many people, many, who I know and perhaps you know, who hold this version of a belief that all religions are essentially equal, and we are all just a manifestation of God's nature. As a matter of fact, Amir Khan, another famous Bollywood celebrity, has a movie which alludes to this concept in a song in the movie called Fana. The lyrics go, तुझो पास हो फिर क्या ये जहां तेरे प्यार में हो जाऊं फना. That if you're close, then why worry? In your love, I am spiritually annihilated. What this allowed is treating Allah with utter disrespect, because when you elevate yourself to the divine, you may speak to God however you please. And when you elevate love and women to be above the divine, does that not create some level of entitlement? By using Sufi poetry with the combination of ideas of pantheism and universalism, disrespect of God becomes a norm, and also introduces to non-Muslim Hindu audiences that this is something that is okay within Islam. In a song called Aaj Din Chadiya, starring Saif Ali Khan, sung by Rahat, the lyrics go as follows. Manga jo mera hai, jata kya tera hai. मैंने कौन सी तुझसे जन्नत मांग ली कैसा खुदा है तू बस नाम का है तू रब्बा जो तेरी इतनी सी भी ना चली. I've only asked for what's mine. What are you going to lose? It's not like I've asked you for Jannah. What kind of God are you? You're a God only in name. Even your order on this one little thing can't occur. A'udhu billah, astaghfirullah. Over the years, there was a slow eradication of proper Islam in the public sphere, replaced with a watered-down, goofy, universalist, peace and love Islam that removed a major and critical portion of Islam, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The statement and profession of objective reality is critical. Some reading this may say, oh, that's just your opinion of Islam. Only God can judge. No, that's not correct. In Islam, we believe in objective reality and objective truth. There are certain principles and ideas that we believe to be true that form the bedrock of Islamic theology and its worldview. When you've subverted theology and morphed the idea of the divine, you lose the fundamental building blocks of morality and how to define it, leaving an open door for serpents to inject further venom into the minds of people at large. Fairy tale matrimony. India as a culture has always been patriarchal, and gender roles were very strictly defined. Bollywood introduced multiple concepts that were generally foreign to Muslims. One being the idea of romanticized, soulmate monogamous love before marriage. Although this concept was introduced very early in cinema, even as early as the 60s, until the king of Bollywood romance, Shah Rukh Khan himself, introduced the iconic and beloved character of Raj Malhotra in Dilwale Dulhania Le Jayenge. In it, he plays a young man with a mix of modern and traditional culture from London, who woos a traditional Indian girl living in London under a tyrannical father. DDLJ became a cult classic phenomenon with its songs played at weddings, scenes, and dialogues memorized and quoted as Shah Rukh Khan became the perfect ideal of a man. It suggested that your father was an angry old man who didn't understand the ways of love. It taught women that if you travel alone independently, you'll discover the perfect young man and life and will become the love of your life. Fighting against your parents and waiting for your love would be worth it in the end, setting up millions of women for failure in a lie about a relationship which does not reflect reality. This film set the precedent for a plethora of romantic comedies and the golden era of Bollywood cinema and music. Similar films include Kuch Kuch Hota Hai, Mohabbatein, Kal Ho Na Ho, Ek Main Aur Ek Tu, Tamasha, Ae Dil Hai Mushkil, Badrinath Ki Dulhania, and these are only a small number of films. It's basically every other film and what Bollywood has become known for worldwide. What is interesting to note is that initially, Bollywood love stories were known for what we would now consider misogynistic tropes, in which a strange man would essentially strong arm and coax a young woman into love, following her, threatening her, bullying her, and if he did it long enough, he would eventually woo her and get her. There are entire films surrounding this trope, including Salman Khan's Tere Naam, or a more recent film called Ranjana. Shah Rukh Khan came to change this formula. He didn't need to strong-arm women. He was a charmer and a lover. If a man could be like Raj, he could get any woman. Of course, we all know that this isn't true. It's just what women were told to believe. Now, unfortunately, as Muslims in post-partition India came to be around Hindu culture, Muslims adopted much of the outright harm and injustice that's put upon women from Hindu culture and further disenfranchised men and women by changing the definitions of marriage and how it's understood. There's a number of films which push the concept of Muslim women being repressed, but the most popular is a film by Amir Khan called Secret Superstar. The film is about a Muslim niqabi girl, Insia Malik, in the city of Vadodara, Gujarat, who makes a viral song while keeping her identity secret. She lives under a tyrant Muslim father who of course is not okay with her aspirations of music and doesn't allow her to sing. The story follows her empowerment into an independent woman and her mother finally divorcing the tyrant father as Insia becomes a superstar. Much of the film is feminist propaganda and furthers a callous lie that Islam is steeped in canonized misogyny. The truth is that many men did indeed mistreat women in India, but it wasn't just Muslims. It was the cultural baggage of Hinduism and egregious negligence and ignorance of the boundaries of the Sharia. A major idea was the concept of lifelong marriage even after death or divorce. Women were forced into a strong stigma adopted from Hindu culture that she is to remain with only one man even if her husband dies or divorces her. As a matter of fact, the practice of sati was practiced in Hindu tradition commonly up until the late 19th century, in which a woman would throw herself into the funeral pyre of her husband, committing suicide and dying with him. In addition, the woman held her husband in the position of a god. The word pati in Sanskrit, often used as the word for spouse, means lord, and pati parmeshwar, or supreme lord, is a phrase often used in the context of Hindu marriage, in which the husband is given a form of divinity. Now, this by no means is an indication that Islam came to break down the walls of patriarchy in India, but rather to show that the way Islam understands gender and the roles of gender is completely different. There is indeed a deference to the husband. There is indeed a submission to his authority and a leader in the marriage, but it is only within the rules and bounds of the Sharia. Women in Islam have autonomy in a way that Hindu women traditionally never had. And even still, Hindu women traditionally don't have. It is only due to the eroding of Hindu culture and Hindu laws and the replacement of them with secular rights that we now see a change. In Islam, women are given rights to money, property, land, freedom of education and movement, with rules and limitations, of course. And in addition, widowed and divorced women were immediately taken care of in many ways through waqfs, shelters, and polygynous marriage. In addition to elevating the husband to a divine being, Hindu society in 1955, in lockstep with global monoculture, also did away with the concept of polygyny, which is to have more than one wife. The way multiple wives were treated in Hindu culture was nowhere close to the level of equity and justice required from a Muslim husband as enforced by the boundaries of the Sharia. Although Muslims were permitted to remain polygynous under Sharia courts, the overall culture had shifted. Even now, Muslim widows, divorcees, handicapped, older, or unattractive women remain unmarried, and married men are not permitted to take on additional women in marriage, helping both parties. In concert with monogamous soulmate love and the global monoculture, women were thrust out of traditional roles of being mothers and homemakers to now pursuing an independent career, a long-winded education, and the thrill of one day meeting their very own Raj Malhotra or Rahul Khanna. There are many who assume that Muslims carry the same baggage as Hindu patriarchy, incorrectly assuming that there is canonized misogyny in every religion and culture. Rather, it's a deep misunderstanding of the completely equitable and just gender roles set up by God Himself. Now that Muslims were completely sold on the idea of Bollywood over the years, it was only a matter of time before those nefarious forces used the same vehicles to usher in downright degeneracy that is completely opposed to Islamic values. Degeneracy and the secular world order. It's 1993, and all eyes are on actor Madhuri Dixit. In her new film Khalnayak, she's Ganga, an undercover cop posing as a sex worker so that she can capture Balram Ballu Prasad, played by Sanjay Dutt, a menacing gangster. In cinemas across India and beyond, Dutt and Dixit's dynamic duo has people glued to their screen, making Khalnayak the second highest grossing film that year. The soundtrack is so good and so well received that Khalnayak ends up selling over 10 million cassettes. The iconic song played in the streets of India in the 90s wherever you went, flooding the sound waves with degenerate lyrics about what's hiding behind my veil. In an article by The Juggernaut, quote, "The song sparked protests for being vulgar, and All India Radio and India's national TV channel Doordarshan banned it. But the people loved it. On YouTube, commenters from all over the world now recount how they were punished. One was even suspended from school for singing such a crude song, but they enjoyed it nonetheless." Now, further degenerate content would be made with item songs throughout the coming decades, normalizing thirst-trapped women in scantily clad clothing with high-energy tunes. One particularly egregious one comes to mind called MashaAllah by Salman Khan and Katrina Kaif. The movie features Salman Khan and Katrina Kaif, who play undercover agents for India and Pakistan, and once again, the Hindu man, Khan, woos the Pakistani Muslim agent Zoya. The song is about how beautiful Katrina is and is titled MashaAllah. In the music video, Salman Khan pulls off her veil to reveal her essentially wearing lingerie as the singers sing MashaAllah, MashaAllah. Now, I don't need to list all of these types of videos. There's too many to go through. But additional numbers include Mahi Ve from Kante, Parda Parda from Once Upon a Time in Mumbai, Sheila Ki Javani from Tis Mar Khan, Munni Badnaam Hui, Chikni Chameli, Fevicol Se Dilbar, the list goes on. After introducing these songs, Indian youth would begin to adopt the clothing styles, dance moves, and the overall culture associated with such films and music, thus quickly spreading secular liberal monoculture throughout India, even replacing much of the traditional Hindu culture found throughout, along with the remaining Islamic culture. An interesting look at how this was achieved might come as a shock to many readers. Director Karan Johar, who was also one of the first openly gay directors, was instrumental in bringing a number of secular ideas to the forefront, starting shockingly with the film Kuch Kuch Hota Hai in partnership with Shah Rukh Khan. He introduced in a very subtle manner a number of secular ideas, or what most considered Western ideas to the Indian populace. By making the film into a family entertainer, they were able to slowly inject poison into the masses without anyone batting an eyelash. Kuch Kuch Hota Hai, a cult classic, introduced a novel idea to Indian culture: college, and not just the idea of an educational establishment. This was already known, but rather a fun, mixed gendered place where girls and boys could be the best of friends. They could fall in love and awkwardly play this new sport that was cool, that very few in India had ever seen before, called basketball. Many seeing this scene today might laugh, as this is perhaps the lamest and most horribly played game of basketball. However, what you find amusing, the youth of India in the 90s, especially women, found magical. It sells the idea that going to college isn't just about learning or higher education, but an entire shift of perspective. It tells girls sitting in a village making chapati rotis that they also need to go to college so that they can play awkward basketball and find the love of their life. It's not about education. It's about feels. It's about finding Rahul Khanna. Shortly after Kuch Kuch Hota Hai and films of the 90s, the idea of relationships outside of marriage and premarital sex became something that was no longer rare, and initially it started only amongst non-Muslims, but slowly crept its way into the Muslim populace as well. Karan Johar would continue to introduce a number of secular concepts, and used Shah Rukh Khan to do so. Another film, called Kabhi Alvida Na Kehna, is about infidelity in marriage. Two couples aren't doing so well in their respective marriages, and so the husband from one marriage and the wife from another, Shah Rukh Khan and Rani Mukherjee, they become friends, and they eventually end up having an affair. The movie sparked a tremendous amount of controversy when it was released, but a movie such as this today would be completely normal. It wouldn't bat an eye, and it would be accepted, perhaps praised. Most people called the outrage a slippery slope fallacy and complained that they were tired of the same old stories. It's not like this movie would lead to further degenerate films. Of course, they were wrong, as more films did come out. A special film which pushed the envelope on the issue of LGBTQ promotion was a film called Dostana. It was played by John Abraham, Abhishek Bachchan, and Priyanka Chopra. The film is about two friends who decide to pretend to be in a same-sex relationship to rent a room with Priyanka Chopra. They are both in love with her, and throughout the film simultaneously try to woo her and pretend to be in a relationship at the same time. What the film does brilliantly is normalize the idea of a same-sex relationship in India, that by the end of the film, neither of the men gets the girl. They sacrifice their love to all remain friends. A few short years later, in 2019, a film called Ek Ladki Ko Dekha To Aisa Laga released, which was a full-blown promotion of a lesbian relationship. It was heavily protested against, but alas, it made its foothold and now remains as a monumental movie in pushing forward LGBT rights. And then came the onslaught of movies that promoted everything from feminism to trans rights, and as they say, Bollywood went full woke. Now every movie is filled with degeneracy and the promotion of secular values, completely sidelining all values from both Islam and Hinduism. In a film that pushed the envelope for the trans community, Chandigarh Ki Kare Aashiki, is about a young man who falls in love with a transgender woman. Initially, he of course rejects her, and then throughout the film slowly falls in love and realizes how much of a fool he was for missing out on this wonderful woman, who was born a man only because of his transphobia. Most Bollywood films have little, if any, culture of India left in them, being only a representative, a simulacra of secular ideas. All you need to see is to watch the below trailer and tell me what about this is Indian outside of the character speaking in Hindi. Now, I could go into a very deep dive into each of the sections that I've covered, but this was meant to be a cursory overview. I haven't even begun to cover the number of ways nationalism and the love of the Indian state above any and all belief systems and religion was promoted. In order to denigrate Pakistan, and by extension Muslims, Muslims continuously were shown as terrorists, rapists, murderers, thieves, and lecherous highwaymen in an attempt to sow hatred and enmity within the nation. All the good Muslims were peace-loving, anti-violence, compassionate people who even married Hindu women and formed beautiful universalist families. This fervor for nationalism was promoted so strongly that even to this day, Muslims across state lines in India and Pakistan argue with one another, forgetting that they are brothers and sisters in Islam, and that state lines are only imaginary and meant to divide the Ummah. It saddens me deeply when I see Indian Muslims and Muslim Pakistanis deluded with feelings of state nationalism that they hold onto greater than the rope of Iman that binds them together. Pakistan is also run by a secular, liberal elite whose goals are not in alignment with the maqasid of the Sharia. And by allowing nationalism to cloud our emotions, we become weak as Muslims. Our goal is not Pakistan, is not India, it is not a flag. Our goal is Allah and His Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. A Pakistani friend of mine recently told me of an event that he attended in which a Muslim speaker was invited. The speaker asked the audience, Pakistan ka matlab kya hai? What is the meaning of Pakistan? And I, being an Indian, didn't actually know the answer to this, but the answer is La ilaha illallah, Muhammadur Rasulullah. And yet, the vast majority of the audience didn't know what he was talking about. It goes to show you that people have forgotten what the purpose of the state was, and it was to unite us as Muslims, not to divide us. I've been meaning to make this video essay for a long time now, but something specifically sparked me to write it, and it was the Instagram reel of a Pakistani woman making an advertisement for her coffee shop, and in it she praised Shah Rukh Khan and Bollywood cinema like no other while being a Muslim woman. And recently, with the release of Pathan and Jawan, starring Shah Rukh Khan after a multi-year hiatus, in the film is a song which caused outrage in India. Ironically, the song is called Besharam Rang, the color without shame, because in it, Deepika Padukone and Shah Rukh Khan are basically thirst traps. And one of the largest complaints was that Deepika's barely clothed body had an outfit that was the color of saffron, and this was disrespectful to certain religious sentiments. In an article by NDTV.com, they quote, one of its songs, Besharam Rang, courted controversy over the orange-colored bikini sported by Deepika Padukone. Yes, you actually read that correctly. The major issue wasn't the degenerate thirst trap music video, but the orange-colored outfit that was part of that video. Now, it's become a religious issue because Hindus have used this to blame Muslims for bringing in degeneracy into the industry and the country. And you know what? I wouldn't blame them for thinking that. This teaser epitomizes the essence of everything Shah Rukh Khan has promoted, as he himself says in the teaser. He made his nation his religion. And he goes on to say in one of the lines of the now viral music videos, Jaan luta ke humne dushman ki hifazat ki hai. I have risked my life to save the enemy. It seems that he didn't just risk his life, he also threw away his akhirah. May Allah guide him. As I have shown in this critique, Muslims were used to usher in a number of heretical issues, the foremost of which is the introduction of the secular world religion that initially borrowed ideas from Hinduism, but eventually morphed into its own belief system whose tenets are as follows. 1. The waterfall isn't sublime. It's whatever I feel it is. There is no absolute objective truth. There is only relative truth. 2. God is not one or many. God is whatever you define to be God, and we may not judge someone's conception of God or lack thereof. 3. We say about someone who believes in a religion that we accept it to be a valid identity as long as it is their secondary or sub-ideology, which remains in submission to the values of the secular culture. 4. The purpose of life is to enjoy the world to its fullest extent. Kal hona ho. 5. A person may believe something is right or wrong as long as they do not prevent or judge another person from doing that action unless it causes material harm to another. 6. No one can judge another morally. 7. Love conquers all and is above any religion or belief system. I hope that this piece has provided some clarity to the number of haram and heretical ideas and elements present in Bollywood film and in the industry overall. They continue to influence Muslims and non-Muslims all across the world. Now, someone may say, not every film or song is wrong or degenerate, and I would agree. Most are now well aware of the increasing wokeness of Bollywood films and the adoption of secular liberal values. And they have shifted their attention to more independent films, or even South Indian films. A recent South Indian film called RRR became one of the top films on Netflix, bringing in audiences from around the world. And although it is wholesome compared to other content, the spread of the film carries with it the baggage of a century's worth of propaganda that is sure to flow through to newer films that will be made. This can be seen in a South Indian film that released shortly after RRR called Sita Ramam, produced by the same production house as RRR. It features a Hindu man, played by a Muslim, falling in love with a Muslim woman, played by a Hindu. She pretends to be Hindu the whole film, and the only good Muslims are the ones who are in support of their relationship and are peace-loving universalists. Bollywood is the unfolding of a Dajjalic system in real time, and these seeds were planted long ago and infected the hearts and minds of Muslims across the world. We must ask ourselves about the content we consume and we allow our families to consume, and how that content is impacting our hearts and our minds. How is it shaping our reality? We ask that Allah grant us protection from straying from His path and allow us clarity to see and avoid the traps that are set for the believers. And Allah and His Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam know best.